is very important. Charles Lindblom is very, very important thinker. Basically, I would say that whenever public policy question comes in your exam, if you mention certain people like, as we talked earlier about, what was his name? Dye, Thomas Dye, Thomas Dye, Laswell, Easton, and Lindblom. So if you mention these three, four thinkers, your answer will be considered comprehensive, even if like you're missing a few things. So focus on any question that comes on public policy. Try to implement each of these ideas. Now you can also add Pareto to this, and you can say that capability approach also. You can also add these, but these are like not specifically for public policy. These are generally the economic theory. Like Pareto is more popular in economics, capability is more popular in social sciences. So these four are very uniquely of public policy: Lindblom, Thomas Dye, Lasser, and Easton. So try to apply them in your solutions, in your answers whenever you write. So let's explain Lindblom. So firstly, he gives the idea of incrementalism. His original idea was of incrementalism. And in case of incrementalism, he says that incrementalism, goal of policy is consensus. That's it. Whenever you have consensus, you have reached your policy goal. Like there is no policy goal like you want the best way, best solutions, and such stuff. Goal of policy is consensus. As soon as you have consensus in the society, you have achieved success in your policy. That is the idea of incrementalism. Why is it so? Why does Lindblom say so? Let me just explain it to you here briefly. So what he says is that existing policy exists because of certain pressures. Okay, there is like say customer, there is here business, there is here environment. Okay, this entire thing is say promoting something like you can say like for example, let's talk about some sports stadium. Sports stadium. So there are many other players, you can say cricket players or any other players. Then you can say also customer is more like, spectators, they pay for it. Then you can say that vendors outside, which are businesses that are running in that area. Environment is the clearing of forest that you have to do for it. Then you need to talk about supply also. Suppliers. Who are the suppliers? Like you need water in your swimming pool, you need someone to cut down things. So you need workers also. Then finally, you need politicians. Politicians are very interested in like cutting the tape on it, demanding what all can be improved, which can be their political manifesto in the next elections. So all these players are there in case of sports stadium. Now, if you want to change something in sports stadium, okay, you want to add a new sport, add a new ground. So that demand might be coming from players. That there are some new players who are like, we want a special ground for, javelin throw, for example. Separate ground for javelin throw is needed because it is risky for javelin throw to happen in the middle of the ground. So that is a demand from player side. Now, how will it impact other things? Environment. Environment will say that okay, you will clear more forest around it. Businesses will say that okay, it is good for us in certain things like okay, there will be more players coming in, more demand. But at the same time, like we might have businesses like shops outside the stadium, so they will not want to get their lose their shops. Then similarly, workers would like a new workplace, like they're adding new jobs for them. But at the same time, customers, for example, people are watching existing games there in that stadium, and for a while that will be disrupted because you are creating a new ground in the neighborhood area. So all these people will have different opinions on this. So, your goal is consensus. Like, you just tell them that, okay, I've just putting this idea. Whatever you all agree on together, we will do that. So, at the end of it, it can happen that that ground is not made. It can happen that the ground is made. But in both the situations, it will happen incrementally. Why? Because it will not disrupt the existing without disturbing equilibrium that was existing. So all these players, all these people were happy with the existing stadium. You will everything that you will do is based on that keeping that equilibrium. Like everyone will be like, okay, for a while, if customer might agree that okay, a little bit of inconvenience we are able to do, like we will watch some games while all this work is happening. All that sort of a thing will happen, and only in that case you will do something. You will never do it, never against consensus. So you will never do it by saying that this is what I want. You can live with it. That is the sort of thing. So why is it so? It is called that. It is called muddling through. Muddling through means in real policy making happens through small and successive comparisons. Like you'll make small improvements over time, and then successive improvements are done. That is his idea. Like you make small, successive, limited comparisons. Limited here is like, okay, you will initially say that, okay, for that ground, we will just remove these many chairs from stadium and create a pathway to that ground. So they will be like, okay, where will you put these chairs? They'll be like, okay, we'll add some chairs in this side of the ground. So they'll be like, okay, in that case, we are fine with it. So you will remove that, you will create that pathway like this. Then environmentalists will say that how will you change, how will you satisfy our need for environmental situation. So in that case you will say that okay, plants from here will be shifted to some other place, and that will happen very gradually. So something like that can happen. Then gradually you will say that okay, we will not disturb your, suppose IPL is happening in that stadium, they'll be like we will not disturb your happening of IPL, we'll only do it during the time when IPL is not playing, like in that time we will do these things. So basically you are doing limited changes without really disturbing the existing system. Okay, this is contradictory to synoptic planning. So synoptic planning is called root model also. Root model. The root model means you will look at every policy as a new thing. Every policy decision as new roots of a plant. So you begin from zero. Okay, this is my plan and I will just construct it. So basically, you will not look at the existing system, existing equilibrium. You will simply start with like whether we, like for example, on the file, it is looking like that only. Institutionalism will say that the politicians decided that we will have this extra ground and it happened. So they will say that, okay, the entire plant is only this. Like it began with this idea, the politician said that I had proposed this idea that we will have a javelin throw ground also along with the stadium. And then this ultimately happened. That's it. So they are only talking in that context. Like I proposed it, budget was there, then it was applied, then finally today I'm opening it. That is the root model. What is branch model? Branch model says that you recognize that existing tree was there, existing stadium was there. You try to convince some people to remove some chairs, like IPL is happening and all this happening. So in that period, you created some change in it, small changes. Then you created the stadium, and then now also you're ensuring that it is part of the stadium only. So basically, this is branch model. Branch model is like there's already a tree here. You're just adding a new branch to it, new branch, right? So this new branch cannot happen in isolation. No, it is happening on the same tree. It will be of the same tree. Like it will be like if it's a mango tree, it will be a mango branch. So root model instead says that uh, I have shaped it totally. Basically, that is the idea. So root model is what synoptic thinking is. Synoptic thinking as in like which focus on directly like okay, from here we started and here we ended. That is the logic here. So incrementalism rejects the traditional theory making. That is the whole argument of incrementalism. It is a branch model instead of root model. It is focusing on small, successive, limited comparisons. This is an important keyword here. Small, successive, limited comparisons. And goal of policy is consensus. This is another keyword from him. All right. So, what are the core features of it? Disjointed incrementalism. So over time, what he did was like he initially was saying that okay, this is how policies are made. They are made very gradually. Gradually, things evolve, things happen. everyone is like kind of agreeing on them, and then they move forward little by little. But in disjointed incrementalism, he says that sometimes there are fragmentations. So for example, initially he was saying that decision making happens like this, gradually, gradually, gradually. From this, disjointed is like it will happen like this, then you give it a new direction, 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 then you give it a new direction. So that is disjointed incrementalism, basically. Like there are certain decision points where you consciously choose something. There are these decision points, disjoints, where you have consciously changed the direction. Okay. So in those things, you are making limited negotiations. So for example, here, when I was giving you that situation, no, you're creating a new ground in that stadium. So this is like this decision point here. This is the decision point that whether to have add a javelin throw ground to stadium. So this is the point of that decision. And then at this point, you take some other decision like that. So over time, it is gradually moving like this. Like some very clearly defined decisions are taken, which do change this course. Like in this case, you are saying that things happen naturally. Like this idea didn't come suddenly. For 10 years, we were talking about this. Then one over the 10 years, slowly we had an agreement, and then slowly we started buying the land. Like first we brought one bought 1 acre, then we bought 2 acre, then we had 5 acre. As soon as we had 10 acres of land, now we thought that we can have a javelin throw ground in it. So then we started construction over 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So incrementalism is like that. It will not say that there is no single defined disjoint or unique decision. That is the point of incrementalism. This is incremental, and this is disjointed incremental. So in disjointed incremental, there is at least something which you can spot out that okay, someone decided this thing, and then things moved in certain direction, which was different from past. So this is disjointed incrementalism. And here, his technique is like, how do you arrive at these policies? So his argument is that you arrive at these policies by partisan mutual adjustment. Basically, you accept that everyone will have their own parties, everyone will have their own interests, but you will adjust them together. You will not call them as something like, you are anti-national or you are anti-change, you are against us, you are not good. So you will not do that. You will be like, okay, you are your own party, you have your own interest, I have my own interests. I agree that my selfish interests are a little bit in conflict with your selfish interest, and I don't like your selfish interest. I don't feel like comfortable with those. Like for example, players may not like business people in the ground, but they are kind of like mutually adjusting, like coming to a negotiation. Like there is a negotiation situation that is happening, there is bargaining that is happening. For example, bargaining is criticized, like when you look at horse trading in among the parties, those kind of things. So here it is saying that you are able to just have that bargaining among themselves and adapt. So it is against that purity kind of a model that okay, this is the right side, this is the wrong side. It is like everyone is kind of like talking about things, gradually they're negotiating, and slowly things are going in the right direction. And at the same time, adaptation is done. It is not like everyone always agreed. That is, he's accepting that. In the incremental model, what is happening is that assumption is that from beginning itself, like they knew that okay, this is what is going to happen. Everybody kind of contributed in it. So in case of disjointed incrementalism, consensus is not there. Like they are not saying that every time at every decision there is a consensus. There is definitely one person who drives the change. There are some people who have opposed him, but at the end of it, like because of bargaining and mutual adaptation, somewhat like the person's will was superior. So at the end of it, there was a change. So that is the logic here of part of disjointed incrementalism. Now, do you find any example here? It leads to blame game, scapegoating kind of political setup leading to conflict. So, how does on ground negotiations work? As mostly they get skewed in favor of the powerful. Yes, that is a criticism of this. We will come to that. It eventually, what happens is when you're justifying the existing situation, so you will downplay some new players. So, for example, imagine entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs want to come and start a new business. So existing system that is there in that economy or that sector, like for example in ports, if some new company is trying to come up in ports, so existing players in the port system, they are each like rubbing each other's back, like you're paying them money, they are doing their work, they are doing their work. So they will not let the new player come in. So that is a problem with incrementalism. It prevents disruption or some changes that happen. So negotiations mostly favor the existing system that is there, existing powerful people. So they negotiate among themselves and come to solutions. So blame scapegoating. Scapegoating will not happen. Like if you look at scapegoating, the scapegoating is like you're blaming the decision on someone else. This is your fault. That will not happen here, no, because we will be like everyone is agreeing to this. So we will move forward. That kind of thing is happening in incrementalism. In disjointed incrementalism, just there's a small change that they recognize that someone took up responsibility, some one person took leadership and faced resistance and tried to win over other people, and then things move forward. That is the only difference in disjointed incrementalism. The idea of incrementalism is like there is nothing like policy making, there is nothing like someone is thinking about it, ki how to change India, how to develop India and move forward. That is the criticism of incrementalism. Like that is the worldview of incrementalism. Ki you don't need public policy only. But disjointed incrementalism says that certain policy decisions were being made and other things were same, like you need to bring consensus among the powerful people. So that is the idea here. Okay. I hope I was making sense. So this is a criticism of incrementalism that you're coming to. We see it is here. It reinforces status quo, withdrawal of farm laws due to inadequate incrementalism. Yes, yes, you can say that like because you wanted to bring, okay, that is a very good example. So rationalists would argue that farm laws were good, farm laws good, farm laws good. But incrementalism will say that because no consensus is not there, farm laws bad. That's the most clear distinction between them. So rationalist approach that is there, it is mainly saying that okay, you do analysis of the policy. Even you can bring here Laswell, Greg Laswell, who is a very respected thinker. I think let me just say Laswell. Laswell is a very respected thinker. As I told you, he's talking about democratizing the society through public policy sciences. And here you can bring in Lindblom. So overall distinction is there between these two things. Okay. Oh man, what is this? All right. So that is the distinction. And again, when there's a crisis situation, when an earthquake has occurred or when there's a landslide, someone needs to take the responsibility. Someone needs to go ahead of others and do something about it, right? You're not again waiting for everyone to show up and then say, okay, are we going to help or are we not going to help? So in crisis situations or when you have to transform, like best example is 1992 reforms. So that is the thing. And then the other thing is that beagle's fallacy. This is a major criticism. The beagle is an animal which is short-sighted. So it is only going in the nearby things. It is not looking at the bigger picture. Here the example would be climate change. So you do need to look at the bigger picture because current consensus may be that things the way they are going is great. Like you're focusing on revenue maximization today, you're not able to see that there are high amount of costs for this in future. So that is Beagle's fallacy. Later evolution. So over time, he realized that disjointed incrementalism is not enough. As we talked about, this is prone to elitism. This is prone to situation where policy making does not happen. This is this example, Berlin airport in Germany. It happened. What happened was that it took, I think, 18 years to make this airport in Germany. Why? Because they were focusing on negotiation instead of analysis. The best example of that, it was the person who was responsible for the designing, chief engineer, chief architect of this Berlin airport. He was an impersonator. He just had backing of the politician from that area. So he was made a chief architect of that airport. He had no idea, in-depth idea of how to design that airport. So because the focus was on negotiation, focus was on consensus that okay, everyone agreed that okay, this politician is suggesting a name, it has to be good, whatever reasons. So that was the focus. Analysis was not the focus. Analysis like competence, design, all that was ignored. As a result of this, there was like 18 years which it took, like they had to change that in the middle point. So all this is a downside of incrementalism. When you're only talking about negotiations, it leads to either the Beagle's fallacy or irrational outcomes because illogically, sometimes people even have consensus on illogical things. Like groupthink is a problem. Groupthink. Here you can say the resistance of Indian corporates to LPG reforms. That was because of the short-sightedness. And in 1979, he said that to some degree, incrementalism has elite biases, so we do need analysis. Like, like Laswell says, that okay, you do need analysis and you do need to ensure that there is so policy analysts will consciously do that. It is not that he will just sit back and be like okay, you all agree, you whatever you say I will do. He will consciously ensure there is inclusiveness in decision making. There is social learning, that he's bringing in information from past. Like if we, for example, last time stampede has happened at something like stampede had happened in Kumbh. So this time, to some degree, we will focus more on security than on experience of the people who are there. Like you do need to bring in certain elements like that from policy analyst side. No one else might be saying all of those things. Everyone might be saying that okay, let's bring in as many people as we can and let them settle wherever they want to. So this is the role of policy analyst, that it has to take a analytical perspective. It has to encourage, it has to foster social learning, it has to give information to change that opinion in the policy pulls and pressures that are being done by the social factors. Here the focus is on balancing rationality with political pluralism. Okay, you look at this again and again. Best example of this is Vestas from Denmark. They are a leader in global wind energy. And how did they start? They started from the wind farms, windmill in farms. Those were very popular in Denmark. So they made those models as their basis and incrementally improved them. So they were used for water, bringing out water to electricity. Water to electricity. This was in comparison to, in contrast to what happened in USA, that they had new companies which are totally focusing on things like, new research, cutting edge blade design, cutting edge, all the things. And they tried to build their own windmill, but no, none of those companies really became global leaders in the windmill energy. So that is an example of this. Other example can be urban planning. Urban planning is often incremental, like you do need to bring in everyone together, and in reality, it happens like that. Okay, this is just a comparison, and